Sometimes, the truth lives in 30 seconds of footage. 30 seconds that a police officer thought would never see the light of day. 30 seconds that a 19-year-old college student would replay in his mind for years to come. On a warm September evening in 2024, during what should have been a routine traffic stop on Highway 52, Officer Derek Mansfield made a choice that would unravel his 15-year career and expose a pattern of behavior that had been hiding in plain sight. The body cam was recording. It captured everything. And what it revealed wasn't just one moment of poor judgment. It was the moment when power, unchecked and unchallenged, finally met its reckoning. Marcus Chen was driving home from his evening shift at the campus library. 19 years old, sophomore at State University, studying computer science. His 2015 Honda Civic had a taillight out, something he didn't even know until the red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. It was 9:47 p.m. The highway was mostly empty. Marcus pulled over onto the shoulder, exactly as he'd been taught in driver's education 3 years earlier. He turned off the engine, placed both hands on the steering wheel, and waited. Officer Mansfield approached the vehicle. His body cam activated automatically when he exited his patrol car's standard procedure. The camera sat mounted on his chest, capturing everything from his perspective. In the footage, you can see Marcus's hands clearly visible on the wheel. You can see the nervous but polite expression on his face as he looked up at the officer. "License and registration," Mansfield said. His voice was flat, mechanical. Marcus reached slowly toward the glove compartment. "My registration is right here, officer. I'm reaching for it now." His voice was steady, but you could hear the slight tremor. Anyone who's been pulled over knows that feeling, the elevated heartbeat, the awareness that this interaction could go smoothly or could spiral in unpredictable ways. "Hands on the wheel," Mansfield snapped. Marcus immediately returned his hands to the wheel. "Yes, sir. I was just getting my registration you asked for." "Did I say you could move?" There was something in Mansfield's tone, something that made Marcus's stomach tighten. He'd heard about moments like these his parents had given him, the talk when he got his license, how to behave during a traffic stop, how to stay calm, how to comply. But sitting there in the dark with an officer whose voice carried an edge of aggression, all that preparation felt suddenly inadequate. "No, sir. I apologize. My registration is in the glove compartment. May I get it?" Mansfield's flashlight beam moved across Marcus's face, harsh and blinding. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus felt his pulse spike. "Is there a problem, officer?" "It's just the taillight, right?" "I said step out of the vehicle now." The body cam footage shows Marcus complying. He opened the door slowly, keeping his movements visible and deliberate. He stepped out onto the shoulder of the highway. A semi-truck roared past, its wind wake rocking both the patrol car and Marcus's sedan. "Turn around, hands on the vehicle." Marcus did as instructed. The body cam captured his posture, compliant, non-threatening. His hands were flat against the roof of his car. Mansfield began to pat him down, roughly, checking for weapons. "I'm not carrying anything, officer," Marcus said quietly. "That's for me to determine." The pat-down was aggressive, more aggressive than necessary. Mansfield's hands moved through Marcus's pockets, pulling out a wallet, a phone, a pack of gum. He tossed them onto the hood of the car with deliberate force. The phone skittered across the metal and fell onto the pavement. "That's my phone," Marcus said, instinctively starting to turn. "Don't move." Mansfield's hand went to his belt, hovering near his service weapon. Marcus froze. "I'm not moving." "I'm sorry, that's an expensive phone." "You got something to hide in that phone?" "No, sir, nothing. I just don't want it to get damaged." Mansfield picked up the phone from the ground. The screen was cracked. He held it up, examining it in his flashlight beam. "Looks like you've got a damaged phone now. Should have kept better track of your belongings." There was a cruelty in his voice, a satisfaction. The body cam captured it all. The unnecessary roughness, the casual destruction of property, the tone that crossed from professional to personal. But this was just the beginning. "I'm going to search your vehicle," Mansfield announced. Marcus's voice remained calm but firm. "Do you have probable cause to search my vehicle, officer?" "I was pulled over for a taillight." This is where everything changed. Mansfield stepped closer to Marcus, invading his space. The body cam showed the young man's face clearly now, nervous but respectful, asserting his rights without hostility. "You questioning me?" "No, sir, I'm just asking about my rights." I know I have the right to refuse a search unless you have probable cause or a warrant. You've been watching too many cop shows, kid. I've been studying constitutional law, actually. I just want to know if you have legal grounds to search my vehicle. Mansfield's jaw tightened. The body cam captured the shift in his expression, from authoritative to angry. You think you're smart? You think because you're in college, you can tell me how to do my job? I'm not trying to tell you anything, officer. I'm just exercising my Fourth Amendment rights. What happened next was captured in excruciating detail. Mansfield grabbed Marcus by the shoulder, spinning him around. Marcus's hands came up instinctively, not aggressively, but defensively, a natural human reaction to being physically grabbed. The body cam showed it clearly. No fists, no resistance. Just a young man protecting himself from sudden, unexpected physical contact. "Don't you put your hands on me," Mansfield growled. "I didn't. You grabbed me. You're resisting arrest." Marcus's voice rose in panic. "I'm not resisting anything. I haven't done anything wrong." Mansfield yanked Marcus's arms behind his back. The body cam footage became chaotic. Rapid movements, the sound of metal clicking as handcuffs were applied. Marcus was repeating over and over, "I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. Please, I haven't done anything wrong. You're under arrest for resisting an officer and obstruction of justice." "What? I asked about my rights. That's not obstruction." Mansfield shoved Marcus toward the patrol car, his hand on the back of the young man's head, pushing him down into the back seat with unnecessary force. The body cam captured Marcus's face in that moment. Not angry, not defiant, but terrified and confused. A 19-year-old kid who'd done everything right and found himself in handcuffs anyway. The drive to the police station was 17 minutes long. The body cam remained on, recording the silence punctuated only by Marcus's shaky breathing and occasional questions that went unanswered. "Can I call my parents? What am I being charged with? Please, I don't understand what I did wrong." Mansfield said nothing until they arrived at the station. He pulled Marcus from the back seat, walked him through processing, and had him placed in a holding cell. The body cam captured all of it: the routine cruelty, the abuse of authority, the violation of rights that had become so normalized that Mansfield didn't even seem to recognize it as misconduct. But here's what Mansfield didn't know. Marcus's phone, the one that had fallen on the pavement with the cracked screen, had been recording audio the entire time. It was a safety feature Marcus had activated when he was first pulled over, something his older sister had taught him. The phone lay in the evidence bag, still recording, capturing conversations that Mansfield and other officers had while processing the arrest. "Another college kid who thinks he knows his rights," Mansfield said to a colleague while filling out paperwork. His body cam was still on, still recording. "What did he actually do?" the other officer asked. "Busted taillight, but he got mouthy. Started quoting the Constitution at me." The other officer laughed. "They all think they're lawyers now." "Yeah, well, he learned a lesson tonight." This conversation, casual, dismissive, revealing, was captured on two devices: Mansfield's body cam and Marcus's phone. It would prove crucial in what came next. Marcus spent 4 hours in that holding cell before his parents arrived. His father, James Chen, was a civil rights attorney with 20 years of experience. His mother, Linda, was a professor of criminal justice at the same university Marcus attended. When they walked into the police station at 2:15 a.m., they weren't just worried parents. They were professionals who knew exactly what questions to ask and what rights their son had. The desk sergeant, Officer Patricia Hernandez, was the one who spoke with them. She pulled up Marcus's arrest record, read the charges, and felt something uneasy settle in her stomach. Resisting arrest and obstruction of justice, stemming from a traffic stop for a broken taillight. No drugs, no weapons, no outstanding warrants. Just a college student who, according to the report, had become combative and refused to comply with lawful orders. But Officer Hernandez had been on the force for 12 years. She'd processed hundreds of arrests, and something about this one didn't sit right. She'd seen Mansfield's arrests before. There was a pattern. "I want to see the body cam footage," James Chen said. It wasn't a request. "That's evidence in an ongoing case," Hernandez replied. "I can't just..." "My son is 19 years old. He was pulled over for a traffic violation and is now facing criminal charges. As his parent and his attorney, I have the right to view evidence pertaining to his arrest. Unless you're charging him with something more serious than what's listed here." I suggest you show me that footage." Hernandez looked at the attorney, then at his wife, then back at the arrest report. She made a decision that would prove pivotal. "Wait here." She went to the back, found the supervisor on duty, Sergeant Mike Torres, and explained the situation. Torres was old school, 2 years from retirement, and he had a reputation for playing everything by the book. "Bring them to the viewing room," he said. "Let's see what we've got." The four of them, James and Linda Chen, Sergeant Torres, and Officer Hernandez, sat in a small room with a computer screen. Torres pulled up Mansfield's Bodycam footage from that evening and pressed play. For the next 23 minutes, they watched in silence. They watched Marcus comply with every instruction. They watched him assert his constitutional rights respectfully. They watched him get grabbed, spun around, and arrested for doing nothing illegal. They watched Mansfield's aggression escalate without provocation. They heard the conversation afterward, the casual admission that Marcus had been arrested essentially for getting mouthy about his rights. When the footage ended, the room remained silent for a long moment. Sergeant Torres's jaw was clenched. Officer Hernandez looked physically ill. Linda Chen had tears in her eyes. James Chen's expression was something else entirely. Controlled fury mixed with professional calculation. "That," James said quietly, "is a false arrest. That is a violation of my son's Fourth Amendment rights, his First Amendment rights, and every protocol you claim to follow. That officer committed battery. He falsified charges. And he did it knowing his camera was recording, which tells me he's done it before and gotten away with it." Torres closed his eyes briefly. "Mr. Chen, I understand you're upset. Upset doesn't begin to cover it. But I'm also a lawyer, and what I just witnessed is a clear-cut case of police misconduct. My son is being released immediately, and all charges are being dropped. And then we're going to have a conversation about Officer Mansfield's employment status. I'll need to speak with the chief. The chief will be hearing from me in approximately 6 hours, which is when his office opens. In the meantime, my son comes home now." Marcus was released at 3:20 a.m. He walked out of that police station with his parents still shaking, still processing what had happened. The cracked phone was returned to him, along with his other belongings. It wasn't until they were in the car, driving home, that Marcus remembered the audio recording feature. "Dad," he said quietly from the back seat, "my phone was recording the whole time." James Chen's eyes met his son's in the rearview mirror. "Play it." The audio was damning. It had captured everything: the traffic stop, the arrest, and crucially, the conversations afterward. Combined with the body cam footage, it painted a comprehensive picture of an arrest that never should have happened. By Monday morning, James Chen had filed a formal complaint with the police department's Internal Affairs Division. By Monday afternoon, he'd also filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against both Officer Mansfield and the police department, citing violation of Fourth Amendment rights, false arrest, battery, and malicious prosecution. But the real catalyst for change came from an unexpected source. Officer Patricia Hernandez couldn't sleep that night. She kept seeing Marcus's face. The fear, the confusion, the earnest attempts to comply with commands that kept shifting and escalating. She'd seen it before in Mansfield's arrests. She'd heard stories from other officers, complaints that had been filed and quietly dismissed, patterns that had been ignored. At 7 a.m. on Tuesday, Hernandez walked into Sergeant Torres's office with a box of files. "We need to talk about Derek Mansfield," she said. Over the next week, Internal Affairs conducted a review. They didn't just look at Marcus Chen's arrest. They went back through Mansfield's entire 15-year career. What they found was a pattern of misconduct stretching back over a decade. Complaints from citizens that had been marked as unfounded, use of force incidents that had been justified as necessary, and a disturbing trend of arrests that fell apart in court, but never resulted in consequences for the arresting officer. Mansfield had arrested 43 people over the past 5 years on charges of resisting arrest or obstruction of justice during traffic stops. Of those 43 arrests, 39 had resulted in dropped charges or acquittals. The other 4 had taken plea deals to lesser charges rather than fight the system. In almost every case, the original reason for the stop was minor: a taillight, a failure to signal, an expired registration. The pattern was clear. Mansfield used minor traffic violations as pretext to initiate confrontations. He would escalate situations through aggressive behavior and then arrest people for responding to his aggression. He targeted young people, people of color, people he perceived as disrespectful to his authority, and he'd gotten away with it for years because the system had protected him. But Marcus Chen's case was different. The body cam footage was too clear. The audio recording provided corroboration. The family had resources and legal expertise. And perhaps most importantly, the case gained public attention. A local civil rights organization picked up the story. Local news stations requested the body cam footage through public records. Requests. Within 2 weeks, the footage was on television, online, being analyzed by legal experts and activists. The 30 seconds that mattered most: the moment Mansfield grabbed Marcus, the moment he falsely claimed resistance, the moment he violated his oath. Those 30 seconds went viral. Public pressure mounted. The police department couldn't quietly sweep this one away. Chief Sandra Morrison, who'd only been in her position for 8 months and had made police reform a cornerstone of her administration, saw an opportunity to make a statement. On October 15, 2024, Officer Derek Mansfield was suspended without pay pending the outcome of the internal investigation. On November 3rd, the internal affairs investigation concluded with findings of misconduct, violation of department policy, and abuse of authority. On November 10th, Derek Mansfield was terminated from the police department, but the consequences didn't stop there. The district attorney's office, under pressure from the public and from James Chen's lawsuit, began a criminal investigation into Mansfield's conduct. While false arrest and official misconduct charges were being considered, the DA focused on what they could prove beyond reasonable doubt: filing false police reports. Mansfield had written in his report that Marcus Chen physically resisted arrest by pushing and striking at the officer. The body cam footage directly contradicted this. He'd written that Marcus refused to comply with lawful orders when the footage showed consistent compliance. He'd written that he had probable cause to search the vehicle based on suspicious behavior when no such behavior existed. In March 2025, Derek Mansfield was indicted on 3 counts of filing false police reports and 1 count of official misconduct. He pleaded not guilty, claiming he'd acted within his authority and that Marcus had been aggressive in ways the camera didn't capture. But the trial was swift. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge, Maria Hernandez, no relation to Officer Patricia Hernandez, was clear in her sentencing statement. You were given a badge and sworn to protect and serve. Instead, you used your authority to intimidate, harass, and falsely imprison citizens. You violated the trust placed in you. You violated the Constitution you swore to uphold, and you did it repeatedly, systematically, for years. Mansfield was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. He lost his peace officer certification permanently. He would never work in law enforcement again. For Marcus Chen, the resolution was bittersweet. The charges against him were dropped completely and expunged from his record. He received a settlement from the city. The terms were confidential, but sources indicated it was substantial. But the psychological impact lingered. He started therapy to process the trauma of that night. He became involved in police reform advocacy, speaking at city council meetings and working with civil rights organizations. I was lucky, Marcus said in an interview 6 months after the incident. I was lucky my parents knew the system. I was lucky I recorded audio. I was lucky the body cam was working. I was lucky there were good officers like Officer Hernandez who were willing to do the right thing. But how many people weren't lucky? How many people were arrested by Officer Mansfield and didn't have resources to fight back? How many people took plea deals because they couldn't afford lawyers? That's what keeps me up at night. The police department instituted reforms, mandatory de-escalation training, enhanced review of officer-involved incidents, a civilian oversight board with real investigative power. Officer Patricia Hernandez was promoted to sergeant and put in charge of the Internal Affairs Division. Sergeant Torres, who had 2 years until retirement, decided to stay on for 3 more years to help implement the changes. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the culture within the department. Officers began reviewing their own body cam footage more critically. Supervisors started asking harder questions about arrests that seemed questionable. There was a recognition, uncomfortable but necessary, that Mansfield hadn't operated in a vacuum. He'd existed in a culture that had enabled and protected his behavior for 15 years. Chief Morrison addressed the entire department in a mandatory meeting. "One bad arrest," she said, Captured on Bodycam changed everything, but it shouldn't have taken a lawsuit and public outcry for us to address this. The signs were there, the pattern was visible. We failed to act. We failed Marcus Chen and dozens of others. That ends now. The reforms extended beyond just that one department. Marcus's case became a training example in police academies across the state. The 30 seconds of body cam footage showing the false arrest was used to teach new officers what not to do. Civil rights organizations used the case as an example of why transparency and accountability matter. Defense attorneys cited it in other cases, successfully getting charges dropped when the circumstances echoed Marcus's experience. As for Marcus himself, he changed his major. He'd been studying computer science, but after his experience, he added a double major in criminal justice. "I want to understand the system," he explained to his parents. "I want to help fix it from the inside." His mother, Professor Linda Chen, supported the decision while warning him it wouldn't be easy. "Systemic change is slow and frustrating," she told him. "People resist it. Institutions protect themselves. You'll face pushback." "I know," Marcus replied. "But someone has to do it, and I survived that night for a reason." 2 years after the incident, Marcus graduated with honors. He was accepted into law school, following in his father's footsteps, with plans to specialize in civil rights law. Officer Mansfield served 14 months of his 18-month sentence before being released on good behavior. He moved to another state, worked in private security for 6 months before being fired, and eventually took a job in construction. The body cam that captured everything, the Axon Body 3 camera, serial number 4472139, remained in service, used by other officers, recording other interactions, some mundane, some heroic, some that would become evidence in other cases. The camera itself was just technology, a neutral observer. But what it represented, accountability, transparency, evidence that couldn't be disputed, had become essential in modern policing. Years later, when Marcus was in his second year of law school, he received an unexpected message. It was from Officer Patricia Hernandez, now Captain Hernandez. She was speaking at a conference on police reform and wanted to know if Marcus would be willing to share his story to speak about that night, about the importance of body cams, about the need for officers to hold each other accountable. Marcus agreed. Standing on that stage, next to the officer who had helped expose the truth, he told his story to a room full of police chiefs, city officials, and reform advocates. He talked about the fear he'd felt that night, the helplessness of being arrested for doing nothing wrong, the anger at a system that had protected his abuser for so long, but he also talked about hope. "Change is possible," he said, "but it requires people within the system to have courage. It requires body cams that actually get reviewed. It requires officers like Captain Hernandez who choose to do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable. And it requires all of us, citizens, officers, officials, to demand better, to demand accountability, to refuse to accept abuse of power as normal or inevitable." The speech received a standing ovation, but the most meaningful moment came afterward, when a young officer approached him. "I'm 23, the officer said. "Your story was part of my academy training. It changed how I think about my job. Thank you." That was when Marcus knew the trauma of that September night had been transformed into something meaningful. Not erased, trauma doesn't disappear, but repurposed into change. One traffic stop, one illegal arrest, one body cam recording. 30 seconds that ended a career but started a conversation that was still rippling outward. The highway where it happened, Highway 52, looks the same as it did that night. Cars still get pulled over for busted taillights. Officers still approach windows with flashlights. But now, every officer in that department knows Marcus Chen's name. They know his story. And they know that the body cam on their chest isn't just recording for liability purposes, it's recording for accountability. It's recording for truth, and truth, as Derek Mansfield learned the hard way, has a way of coming to light, especially when it's captured in 30 seconds of undeniable footage. You know, sitting here after telling Marcus's story, I can't help but think about something. How many traffic stops happen every single day in this country? Millions, most of them go fine. Most officers do their job with integrity. Most people drive away with nothing more than a warning or a ticket. But every now and then, something goes wrong. And when it does, when power is abused and rights are violated, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of country do we want to be? Marcus was lucky he had parents who knew the system. He had a phone that was recording. He had a body cam that captured the truth. But think about all the people who don't have those advantages. Think about the single mom who can't afford a lawyer. The kid who doesn't know his rights, the person who gets arrested on false charges and takes a plea deal because fighting the system seems impossible. This story isn't just about one bad cop or one traffic stop. It's about all of us. What we're willing to tolerate, what we're willing to speak up about, what we demand from the people who are supposed to serve and protect us. It's about the Captain Hernandezes of the world who have the courage to do the right thing, even when it's easier to look the other way. It's about the body cams that hold everyone accountable. And it's about young people like Marcus who turn their trauma into purpose. Every single one of us has a role to play in making sure justice isn't just a word, but a reality. Whether you're a parent teaching your kids about their rights, a citizen demanding transparency from your police department, or just someone who refuses to stay silent when they see something wrong, you matter. Your voice matters, your actions matter. So here's what I want to know from you. What did this story make you feel? Have you or someone you know ever had an experience like Marcus's? What do you think needs to change to make sure this kind of abuse of power becomes a thing of the past? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to hear your perspective. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because we're going to keep telling these stories. We're going to keep shining a light on injustice, on courage, on change. We're going to keep reminding ourselves that truth matters, that accountability matters, and that ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring, and remember, the body cam is always watching. Let's make sure we're all worthy of what it captures.